It's cheesecake today, and folks, let me tell you, this one came out really good. You're going to enjoy it. Well, it's the holiday season, and I decided this year it would be fun to make a cheesecake. Now, it's been many years since I've made cheesecake. It's not a hard thing to make cheesecake. In fact, when you get down to it, it's easy to overcomplicate, and it's a simple thing to make. Here's the thing. I was looking around, wanted a cheesecake. I thought, it's the holiday season. I think I want a cheesecake. So I start looking at bakeries and different shops. Every one of them is sold out. Sorry, we were booked on this stuff months ago. And, I was hearing this over and over, and I'm looking at the prices, and I'm thinking, $50, $60 for a cheesecake? Are you serious? Now, I could go up to the local grocery store, hit my food store and buy something pre-made in the freezer section, something that's just chock full of high fructose corn syrup and dextrose and everything that I don't want in a cheesecake. So I didn't want the commercial kind of thing. I couldn't get local. And I was rather irritated by this. And I thought, this is ridiculous. It's a cheesecake. Okay, we're talking 5 ingredients. And nothing difficult in its making. So folks, I thought, okay, fine. I'll do a show on it. We're going to make a cheesecake. And as I started thinking about it, I thought, this is a great show. It's going to give me a lot of crossover information. We're going to get into how to properly line a spring form, how to use parchment in it, how to use butter with that parchment. A lot of neat stuff. How to cut the bottom and how to fix it so the bottom can be built to use to slide the cheesecake later. I'm going to show you a neat trick on that. Now, when it comes to making a cheesecake, it's all about simplicity. And the more simple you make it, actually the better it comes out. Now, last night I'm making one of these thinking, okay, I need one to show everybody at the beginning of the show because it takes a long time to make a cheesecake. Not to cook it, to cool it back down, because after you cook it, then you have to let it cool at room temperature slowly, and once it comes to a certain temperature, then you transfer it and then put it in the refrigerator, and then you're in for another 6-hour wait. So it's a long time in the chilling process. So I wanted one already made. Now I've got this one already made, but well, it was late at night last night, folks, and I dozed off, and it was in the oven about 10 minutes too long, so the top on it's kind of dark. The cheesecake is delicious. I'm still eating it, but it doesn't taste bad. It doesn't taste burnt. It's just a dark top on it. Anyway, we'll take a look at that in a moment, and I'm going to give you some understanding on what I did and why I did it, and we'll move forward in the making of a basic cheesecake. This, by the way, it's not one of those that has the swirl in it or the blueberries or whatever. If you want that, you can add it. But for now, let's just get down to what is a basic cheesecake. This is one of those real heavy, dense ones. It's a thick one. It uses 2 pounds of cheese, and it is really loaded with delicious. So folks, we'll get in the kitchen, and I want to show you how I like to make a cheesecake. Come on, let's go. Oh, one thing before we go. Did you see the new hat? It's the first of my Texas Cooking Today merchandise. Now this one's a really cool hat. This is an all cotton cap. It's cotton fabric throughout the bill as well. On the back there is a nylon strap. It's really nice. Very good quality make. This cap is going to be going on sale. Yeah, there we go. Man, that looks good. That'll be going on sale in the month of December on S.A.Trotter.com. And that is where all of the merchandise for Texas Cooking Today is going to be sold. That's my website, by the way. So it's all the same thing. We're under the same house. Folks, let's get in the kitchen. Let me teach you how I like to make a cheesecake. Come on. Now folks, the ingredients for a cheesecake are very basic and simple. I've got cream cheese here, sour cream, sugar, eggs, and vanilla. That is what you use to make a cheesecake. It's very easy. As far as our crust, I'm using graham crackers, and I thought when I tried this the other day with plain graham crackers that it was a bit bland. So I'm going to sweeten it today with some sugar, some cinnamon and allspice to flavor it, and plenty of salted butter to bring it all together as a lovely crust. Now folks, when we make a cheesecake, we use this thing called a springform pan. The idea here is the side of the pan will spring loose from the base, so it opens up from the base, allowing the cheesecake to be removed easily. Now, some other things that really help is buttering that pan, or using a crust like we're going to do, because it has a lot of butter in it. But in addition, you can also wrap with parchment, and I want to teach that today. I want to teach not only how to do the bottom with parchment, but how to fix it in such a way that it has a tab that allows you to move the cheesecake around after it has been cooked. All right, so this is kind of a neat lesson when it comes to using a springform pan and lining it out the right way with parchment. Now, something that I need to mention to you when it comes to making a cheesecake. Ingredients need to be room temperature, okay? If they're too cold, well, it doesn't work as well. All right, so bring your ingredients up in temperature, and that way this will work really easy for you. Now the springform pan, if you're not familiar with the thing, okay, they can be a little bit weird, okay? In other words, some people have a hard time getting them together. Here's the trick. Make sure that your base, with the right side face up, is sitting on a flat surface. Okay, and that's usually with this little lip facing up. There is a ridge on one edge of the pan on the inside. That goes where the base is. Now just place this loose on the same flat surface. And most of the time when you draw this tight on a springform, it'll pull that base right into place just like it did. All right, it pulls it up just slightly, but very small amount. Now one of the things about a springform, when you're lining the bottom of this with, let's say, a graham cracker crust, you have this little bevel still sticking out down here. So your crust will look a little thicker in the corners due to this. Be prepared for that. The next thing is, I like to treat mine with parchment, and to get the parchment to stick, I use butter. They kind of all work together, and then when I take the springform off of the outside of the cake, the parchment is there also protecting it. Now, the way I like to do mine is I give myself what I call an escape pull, which is a little tab that allows me to handle the cheesecake. Let me show you how I do it. The first thing, we're going to take a piece of cooking parchment like I have here, and it's got a little greasy spots on it. That's just from me handling it while we were in here doing what we're doing. Now, when I want to do this, I start by making a diamond cut like this, okay? And this piece right here can just go away, all right? So it's not really doing me any good. Okay. Now what I want to do is to produce a nice little base for my pan. Now, you've noticed what I've done there. I simply took a piece of paper, folded it diagonally, like so, and then I folded it again, just halving it each time. Bam, bam, okay? Let me show you the trick. Here's the pull. Take this and fold him back, just like that. Go back to my folding, just as I had done earlier. There, I can fold this one more time. All right, now, how much to cut? Well, first off, I'm just going to make it a little less in the way. There we go. This is our point down here. This is the part I folded out. You remember when I folded that one leaf over? Okay, now I'm going to put this in the middle of the pan, give myself something of an idea of about how big that is, and then I can cut. This is not terribly accurate, but I can cut this. I'm gonna pull this back just a hair. There we go, made it a little bit of curve. So what I'm going to do is unroll this now. Well, doesn't that look strange? So I've got all of that going on. There's a little bit of hangover the same way I want it. This is a little bit bigger than I need, so I'm just going to take my scissors and cut from these corners straight up, like so. Now, the pull tab. This is the most beautiful thing. When you're finished baking up your cake and you're wanting, let's say I've removed the outer steel and I'm wanting to move my cake from one surface to another, all I have to do is grab that pull tab. I've got plenty of paper there and I can slide it right off of the base of this pan onto my next plate. Works like an absolute charm, folks. Now the next lesson on this, for some people this may take 2 pieces of paper. I have some really long parchment that I use, but I want to take some of my parchment and get it folded up like so. It does not have to be perfect, but I need to make a fairly straight cross cut here, and then put this in my pan to measure the height of the side, giving myself a cut right there. What this does for me is it gives me a side runner. Open this up. And that's my outside side paper. The paper does not have to be a continuous piece on the bottom corners, folks. It's not necessary. Now, to get my paper in there and stuck down real well, we're going to use butter for the glue. So, I'm going to put my butter down in here, rub it around. And this is sort of similar to greasing and flouring a pan. The paper just acts as a nice medium when you're doing it this way. I like doing it this way. I think it's fun. Now, something I do. My little release here, I like to orient everything into one spot. Where the spring release is, that's where my pull is going to be. And where the spring release is also where I am going to start my side. So I'm just pressing the bottom piece down, kind of getting it bent to fit and shape the pan, as you see here. Side runner, again, right where the spring starts. And of course, once you come back around, you want about 2 inches of overlap on that side. After that, any extra paper is just a waste. There we go. We're just trying to get this up against the sides nice and flush. And snug on the edges. And stuck around the bottom. It's going to keep soaking in butter and it will stick just fine, so don't worry about that. You know, sometimes the grocery store just doesn't have what you need and you got to turn to your own devices. I'm going to break these up and then feed them to my blender here to make my own graham cracker crumbs. This is why it's important to have different ways to process things in the kitchen. And by the way, this will work with other kinds of dry cookies. So if you wanted to do chocolate wafers this way, if you wanted to do almond wafers this way, if you wanted to do windmill cookies, whatever, look at it this way. This is just sort of your in to making really good crusts, okay? For my graham cracker crust, I wanted to add in just a little extra flavor on this, okay? So I'm going to use some cinnamon and allspice. There we go. Remember, both of these spices go a long way. It doesn't take a lot. I'm using a half a teaspoon of each. Now with our spices in here, I'm going to add some sugar. Get the rest of that in there. I want to make sure that my spices are thoroughly combined and mixed throughout, because I want that flavor running through every single bite of the crust. Now when it comes to that butter, don't boil your butter. You don't have to go crazy with the butter, okay? Just melt it. Now I have my crumbs here that we've already fixed up, as you're already aware of. I'll pour the butter in here. Yep, just all at once. Just get busy mixing it all together. So let's get busy pressing it down in here. Now part of this, as I mentioned, is going to be for my sides. And I'm going to go ahead and start working my sides out. I'm going to do that first, in fact. And it doesn't take a really super thick layer to do this, folks. We're going to smooth it out in a moment also. Now there's some thin spots on my sides, so I'm going to start working on that. And it does not, as I mentioned, does not have to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. That's not what we're going for. We're just looking for a good coating. Now this is also where you can use little items like your measuring cup. It can be used to smooth out and make those edges look nice. Now I have the oven preheating, so you'll know it's preheating to 350 degrees, and that will be for the sole purpose of cooking this crust for 10 minutes. After that, for the cake, we raise the temperature to 375. And there it is. We have that beautiful crust ready to go. Packed in most of the way up on the top. There's a few spots that missed, but you know what? That's not going to matter. When this is said and done, it's going to be beautiful, okay? So we're not worried about that at all. I need to get this in the oven and get it baked. That's 10 minutes at 350 degrees right there. Okay, remember this is delicate, so handle it that way. In that oven, 350 degrees, 10 minutes. Something I want to mention is, even though I'm using this mixer, I don't plan to run this on high. Something you need to know about cheesecake. Unlike other cakes, where we begin with our fat and then we whip it, we try to cream it and working air into it, and then we do other processes to try to build volume and to, again, work air into the cake. Well, that's the opposite of what we want to do here. With a cheesecake, we're trying to prevent air from getting in there. So we don't whip anything. We don't do that with it. We're just going to gently soften the cheese, and once it starts to soften, we'll work in the sugar and the sour cream and the vanilla. Last of all, one at a time, I will work those eggs in, trying hard not to beat them. Remember, we're not looking to build any kind of an air structure in this. We want to keep it dense and heavy. That's what a cheesecake is. There we go. Now these are room temperature ingredients. You need them warm so they'll be good and soft. And be patient. Occasionally, as you're working your cheesecake, as with other cakes, open it up and scrape down the edge of the bowl. You can see all the material that's not worked in, and that goes all the way to the bottom. So make sure you do that. It's just part of using this kind of a mixer, folks. Sugar. I'll start working in my sour cream now. Alrighty, now I've started working in my eggs. We'll work those in one at a time. And you need to just gently beat them, nothing more than that right there, a light scramble, before adding each one in. And remember, we're being gentle, we're not trying to add air. Alright, as you've seen, it's been very minimal processing. I have done very little to this. So at this point, what I'm doing, one last scraping on the bowl, and then I run it once more, and then we're ready to bake. The crust is pulled out of the oven, and that happened while we were making the cake. And all I have to do is now get my cake batter right down into my crust. Now there's some other things that you might hear about, which is things like you should do a water bath. Okay, the idea behind the water bath, guys, is to keep the cheesecake from drying out and cracking. Alright, and from what I have learned and through experiments over the years, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, if you give your cheesecake plenty of time to cool down on top of the oven, okay? In other words, when you pull it out, you just set it up on top and give it lots of time to do its thing. If you do that, then the odds are very high you're not going to have a cracking. If you try to rush cooling it down by putting it in the refrigerator too soon, or by putting it on cooling racks and using fans and things like that, then yeah, you're probably going to have problems with that cake cracking, okay? So we don't want that to happen. Now it's time for our little treat to hit the oven. And 375 degrees, 1 hour. At this point, it's important to mention that you don't want to mess with it. Don't open the oven. Do not check on it. Don't walk heavy around the oven. Don't slam the door on the oven. Things like this can cause it to fall, can cause you to have issues. It needs to be treated delicately at this point. 1 hour of cooking. When you're finished, very gently, delicately remove it. Set it on top of the oven and give it hours to cool. Okay, there's no rushing cooling. Slow cooling makes good cheesecake. All right, so it's patience time. Alrighty, I have just pulled him from the oven. I'm going to let that sit. I'm being very gentle with it. It just needs to sit, and it's going to fall, okay? It's going to fall a whole lot. So be patient with it. And the color I have on this is a nice, lovely caramel color, and this is pretty much the way I like it to look. Need to mention, though, the one I put out yesterday for this, I'll sometimes do a test video. And yesterday, let me show this to you. I fell asleep and left it in there a bit too long. So if you'll notice, this became a little too dark. This top domed up as a skin, and it gave me this effect right here. So not very pretty. However, there was no flavor ruined in this. That still tastes good. All right, still sweet. Inside on it, beautiful shape. This is very common with cheesecakes. You're going to see that edge a little higher. And the nice thing about that is it gives you something in the middle to fill. If you want to put some jam in there, fruit, pie filling, like cherry pie filling, whatever, works good on this. Okay, so my mistake yesterday was leaving it in there 10 minutes too long. This was an hour. This was an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm just letting this cool. As soon as it does, I'm going to be able to remove it. The total quantity on our ingredients is 2 pounds of cream cheese, 1 cup of sour cream, 1 cup of sugar. I like to use a cane sugar on this one. I think it tastes good. 3 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and cinnamon and allspice for that crust. We're using 1/2 teaspoon of each. 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 sticks of butter, or 1 cup, and 2 of these packages of graham crackers. Or if you're just using them already crushed up, then you're looking at about 3 cups, 2.5 to 3 cups total crumbs. This has had enough time to cool, enough so I can touch it. Now very gently, we want to release the spring on this. Don't let it just pop open, because you don't want, well, you don't want it causing damage, all right? So we released that. And watch how that just slips off of there. Isn't that nice? So now we have our paper to deal with here, and I need to get that off of there. There we go. We'll just slide out gently. There we go. And there we have it. And I would like you to notice that right here is that little tab that we have. So when it comes time for me to remove this from the base, I can simply use this to slide it right off of there. Right now is the time to do that. But I wanted y'all to take a good look at this, at how it came out. Now, I'll say this, I'm not the world's most perfect at making a cheesecake, but frankly, this does not look too bad. If I were to fill this with, let's say, some cherries and maybe top it with some whipped cream, that would be a really neat thing to do. There's a lot of different options here. So feel free to experiment, but what you see, we have a beautiful cheesecake. It's going to be enjoyable, but it has to finish cooling, and this is a long ways from that. I can't slice into this until it becomes about 40 degrees, and that's going to be about another 4 to 6 hours in cooling. So it's had 2 hours. It's now handleable. Let's get it onto that plate. So there we go. Grab my piece of parchment and simply pull my base out. There you have it. And that's how that parchment with the little tab on the corner can really help you out, folks. Isn't that neat? It is now cooling on this platter. I'm about to put it in the refrigerator, and it's going to need about 6 hours in the fridge to get it really down to where it needs to be. All right, and that's all there is to it when it comes to making your cheesecake. It's a matter of patience at this point. Alrighty, this has had a chance to cool, and it's time for us to take a look and see what we got going on down in here. Well, it was a day of cooking and plenty of time to wait, but this has had a lot of time to chill off in the fridge. That's it. That super smooth creaminess. Man, flavor's perfect. Not to mention what we did to the crust. Guys, it's a great cheesecake. When you try it, I'm sure you're going to be making it more than once. Hey, thanks for watching. If you would, take a look at S.A.Trotter.com. Pick out some of those trick caps. Also, some of the other neat merchandise that's there. And if you would, please take a look at Texas Cooking Today. Lots of more videos. Lots more to come. And folks, just want to say thank you very much for showing up and watching and for being my viewers. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much and enjoy your cheesecake. Bye-bye. Yeah.